Start now. Not later. Not when life gets easier, not when you feel more confident, not when the noise in your head finally disappears. Start now, because the life you are living is being shaped by the thoughts you repeat every day. Most people think their mind is a fixed place, something they were simply given and must carry forever. But the mind is not fixed. It is trained. It is patterned. It is influenced by what you hear, what you see, what you fear, what you believe, and what you practice. That means it can change. And if it can change, then your future can change too. Reprogramming your mind is not about becoming fake. It is about becoming free. It is about replacing the thoughts that weaken you with thoughts that strengthen you. It is about learning how to stop letting old pain write your future. It is about choosing a better inner voice, one that speaks with truth, courage, and direction. Right now, your mind may be full of old messages. Maybe you have been told you are too slow, too late, too ordinary, too inconsistent, too broken, too small, too much, or not enough. Maybe those words came from other people. Maybe they came from your own repeated thoughts. Either way, they do not have to stay. They are not your destiny. They are only mental habits, and habits can be changed. The moment you understand this, you stop treating your thoughts like law. You start treating them like information. And once you can question your thoughts, you can reshape your life. Reprogramming begins with awareness. You cannot change what you refuse to see. So the first step is simple but powerful. Notice what your mind says when no one else is speaking. Notice the thoughts that appear when you wake up, when you make a mistake, when someone ignores you, when progress is slow, when you feel behind, or when you are tired and alone. Those moments reveal the programming you have been living with. Some thoughts are helpful. They push you to improve. Others are lies dressed as truth. They sound familiar, so you trust them. They say, "You always mess this up." They say, "Other people can do it, but not you." They say, "Why bother trying again?" They say, "You are not the kind of person who succeeds." Those thoughts are not the voice of your future. They are echoes from your past. And echoes can be replaced. Awareness means you stop obeying every thought just because it appears. You pause. You watch. You question. You ask, "Is this true? Is this useful? Is this helping me move forward?" That one pause can change everything. Because many destructive patterns survive only because they are never challenged. The mind keeps repeating what it has practiced, not always what is real. So become alert. Listen closely. Learn your patterns. If your inner dialogue is cruel, you do not need to accept it. If your mind expects failure before effort, you do not need to worship that expectation. You can study it, understand it, and replace it with something stronger. That is the beginning of reprogramming. Not pretending, not ignoring, not forcing fake positivity. Just honest awareness. Honest awareness is the doorway to power. Once you see the old programming, you must begin removing its fuel. A mind becomes strong through repetition, and it also becomes weak through repetition. If you repeat fear, fear grows. If you repeat doubt, doubt grows. If you repeat self-blame, self-blame grows. If you repeat excuses, excuses grow. This is why your inner world matters so much. Every repeated thought becomes a path, and every path becomes easier to walk. That is how people get stuck. They do not become stuck overnight. They get stuck through mental grooves worn deep by years of reaction. But those grooves can be changed. A new thought may feel awkward at first. It may not sound as natural as the old one. That is normal. New thinking often feels strange because your brain is used to the old track. Stay with it anyway. Tell yourself the truth that supports growth. Say, "I may not be there yet, but I am learning." Say, "I have failed before, but that does not define me." Say, "I do not need to be perfect to begin." Say, "I can improve one decision at a time." These are not empty words when they are backed by action. They become mental training. And mental training changes behavior. Behavior changes results. Results change confidence. Confidence changes identity. That is the chain. That is the path. When your mind hears a new message often enough, it starts to accept it as normal. And what becomes normal becomes powerful. This is why daily repetition matters so much. A single encouraging day will not transform you. A single productive morning will not erase years of self-doubt. But a steady stream of new thought, new action, and new response can rebuild the whole system. That is reprogramming. It is not instant. It is intentional. It is not dramatic at first. It is quiet, steady, and serious. It happens in the way you speak to yourself after a mistake. It happens in the way you respond when you do not feel like continuing. It happens in the way you interpret setbacks. Do you see them as proof that you are weak, or as proof that you are in training? That question matters. Because the meaning you give the moment becomes the emotion that follows the moment. And the emotion often decides the next action. So give your mind better meanings. Give it stronger language. Give it more truth. The old program said failure means stop. The new program says failure means learn. The old program said delay means you are behind forever. The new program says delay means your timing is still being shaped. The old program said pressure means you are losing. The new program says pressure means you are being tested for strength. This is how a stronger life begins, by changing the meaning of what happens to you. Because life itself will not always become easier. But your interpretation can become wiser. And wiser interpretation creates better responses. The next part of reprogramming is replacing passive thoughts with active direction. A passive mind waits. It watches. It complains. It rehearses problems without moving toward solutions. An active mind asks, what is mine to do now? That question is one of the most powerful questions a person can ask. It turns fear into focus. It turns confusion into responsibility. It turns pain into movement. When you ask that question often enough, your life starts to shift from reaction to leadership. And leadership begins inside your own head. You do not need to control everything around you. You need to control how you respond to what is around you. That is real mental strength. It is the ability to stay useful when emotions are loud. It is the ability to stay focused when disappointment is fresh. It is the ability to keep moving when the future is unclear. People often think a strong mind is a mind that never feels stress. That is not true. A strong mind is one that does not collapse under stress. It can feel pressure and still choose wisely. It can feel tired and still take one more step. It can feel nervous and still speak with honesty. It can feel discouraged and still return to the work. That is the mind you are building. Not a perfect mind, but a trained mind. A mind that does not hand power to every passing feeling. A mind that knows discomfort is part of growth, not a sign to quit. This is why routine matters so much in the reprogramming process. Routines are not boring when they are building you. They are anchors. They tell your mind, we are serious now. Wake up and make your bed. Move your body. Drink water. Write down your goals. Read something that strengthens your focus. Do the work before the distraction. These actions may seem small, but they are repeated evidence that you are no longer living by accident. Each routine is a reminder that your mind can be led. And once your mind learns to follow a better order, your life becomes less chaotic. Repetition is powerful because it turns effort into identity. At first, you force yourself. Then you practice. Then you rely on it. Then it becomes part of who you are. That is how a new program takes hold. Not by one dramatic moment, but by many quiet decisions. A reprogrammed mind also learns how to speak differently after failure. Failure is not just an event. It is also a conversation you have with yourself after the event. Two people can fail in the same way and walk away with completely different lives. One says, I knew it. I was never meant for this. The other says, that hurt, but it taught me something. The first voice weakens the future. The second voice strengthens it. This is why your internal speech is so important. You need a voice inside you that does not panic every time things go wrong. You need a voice that can hold disappointment without breaking. A voice that says, this is hard, but I am still capable. This did not go as planned, but I can adjust. I am not finished because I stumbled. I am not disqualified because I was delayed. That kind of self-talk is not denial. It is direction. It does not ignore reality. It helps you face reality without surrendering to it. People who win in life are often not the most talented people in the room. They are the people who can keep their mind steady long enough to learn, adapt, and continue. They know how to recover faster. They know how to stop over-identifying with failure. They know how to separate a bad outcome from a bad identity. That separation is powerful. It protects your mind from turning one mistake into a permanent label. If you want to reprogram your mind, learn to treat mistakes as data. What happened? Why did it happen? What can be improved? What pattern needs changing? What belief needs replacing? These questions pull your mind forward. They turn pain into insight. And insight is one of the greatest forms of power because it helps you avoid repeating what broke you. Every breakthrough begins with seeing clearly. Without clarity, people repeat the same patterns and call it fate. With clarity, they begin to see that many of their limitations are not final. They are learned. And if they are learned, they can be unlearned. This is the hope at the center of reprogramming. You are not trapped by the first version of your thinking. You can learn a better one. You can practice a stronger one. You can live from a wiser one. And when you do, your choices change. Your energy changes. Your future begins to open. But reprogramming your mind is not only about what you stop believing. It is also about what you deliberately feed yourself. Your mind is constantly taking in material. Messages, images, conversations, comparisons, fears, ideas, and expectations are all entering the system every day. If you let anything in without care, you should not be surprised when your inner world becomes messy. You have to choose your inputs with intention. What do you read? What do you watch? What do you listen to? Who do you spend time around? What kind of conversations shape your thinking? What habits fill your morning? What words dominate your private moments? These things matter more than many people realize. A mind cannot stay strong while being fed weakness all day. If you want a better mental life, you need better mental fuel. Feed your mind with stories of resilience, not excuses. Feed your mind with lessons, not noise. Feed your mind with truth, not constant comparison. Feed your mind with examples of persistence, not endless distraction. This does not mean you live in a bubble. It means you become selective. A responsible person does not leave their mind open to every random influence. They guard it. They understand that attention is precious. Wherever attention goes, energy follows. Wherever energy goes, habits grow. Wherever habits grow, identity forms. So be deliberate. Protect your focus. Reduce the habits that blur your thinking. Increase the habits that sharpen it. A few minutes of quiet reflection can do more for your mind than hours of mindless scrolling. A few pages of useful reading can do more for your future than 100 empty distractions. A single meaningful conversation can redirect your thoughts more than a whole day of noise. Reprogramming is partly about subtraction. Remove what weakens you. Remove what confuses you. Remove what drains you. Then add what strengthens you. This is not punishment. This is design. You are designing a mind that can carry your life. A mind that can lead under pressure. A mind that can stay disciplined when emotions are unstable. A mind that can keep moving when the results are slow. That kind of mental design does not happen by accident. It requires care. Requires courage. It requires choices repeated long enough to matter. But every healthy input is a vote for the life you want. Every good habit is a vote. Every boundary is a vote. Every time you choose growth over numbness, you are casting a vote for a stronger future. One of the biggest enemies of a reprogrammed mind is the old identity that keeps trying to return. Old identity is comfortable because it is familiar, even when it hurts. It says, "This is just how I am." It says, "I always end up here." It says, "People like me never really change." It says, "I have tried before, so why would this time be different?" Those are powerful lies because they sound like memory. They sound like honesty. But they are often only patterns pretending to be destiny. You must challenge that identity. Not with fantasy, but with evidence. If you want to become a new thinker, start acting like one. If you want to become calmer, practice calm responses. If you want to become more disciplined, keep one promise at a time. If you want to become more confident, gather proof through small wins. The old identity weakens when it stops being fed. That means you stop rehearsing your worst story. You stop repeating the language of limitation. You stop narrating yourself as stuck. Every time you say, "I am the kind of person who never follows through," you reinforce a cage. Every time you say, "I am learning to follow through," you open a door. The wording matters because the mind listens. Speak with enough care and your mind begins to organize itself around a different possibility. This is especially important when progress is slow. Slow progress can make the old identity feel louder. It whispers, "See, nothing has changed." But slow progress is still progress. A clearer mind is progress. A stronger habit is progress. A better reaction is progress. One less self-destructive decision is progress. Do not wait for your whole life to transform before you give yourself credit for changing. The reprogrammed mind understands that growth is built in layers. It appreciates the early signs. It respects the work before the reward. It sees the invisible changes that others miss. And because it sees them, it keeps going. That is how transformation becomes sustainable. Not by chasing dramatic reinvention every week, but by building a new pattern so consistently that the old one can no longer dominate. Identity changes when behavior changes, and behavior changes when belief changes. That cycle is powerful. It can lift a person who once felt stuck into a life that feels intentional and alive. But you must be patient with the process. New identity does not arrive like a switch. It grows like a tree. At first, the changes are small. Later, they become undeniable. Reprogramming your mind also means learning how to separate fact from feeling. Feelings matter. They are real. They deserve respect. But feelings are not always accurate guides for action. You may feel like quitting and still need to continue. You may feel like hiding and still need to show up. You may feel behind and still be exactly where you need to be to grow. You may feel scared and still be capable of moving forward. The reprogrammed mind does not insult feelings, but it does not obey them blindly either. It asks, what is true here? Sometimes the truth is that you are tired and need rest. Sometimes the truth is that you are discouraged and need encouragement. Sometimes the truth is that you are afraid and need courage. Sometimes the truth is that you are making the task larger in your head than it really is. When you can identify the true need, you can respond wisely. This is mental maturity. It saves energy. It reduces drama. It turns confusion into direction. A person who can distinguish mood from truth becomes much harder to defeat. Because life can throw temporary storms at them, but the storm no longer defines the whole sky. They know that feelings pass. They know that thoughts change. They know that fear is not permanent. This knowledge creates calm. And calm creates better decisions. Better decisions create better outcomes. Better outcomes reinforce better thinking. That is the rhythm you want. Not frantic effort. Not emotional chaos. Not endless self-criticism. Calm, steady, purposeful response. It may not look flashy, but it is deeply powerful. Think of how much time is wasted when a person believes every negative thought immediately. They stop before starting. They judge themselves before trying. They quit before the first real obstacle. Reprogramming interrupts that pattern. It says pause. Question. Choose. That pause is the space where freedom lives. In that space, you can decide not to react the same way again. And that decision, repeated enough, changes a life. So when your mind becomes noisy, do not panic. Return to what is true. Return to what is useful. Return to what you can control. One breath. One step. One choice. One focused block of time. These simple acts are not small when they are done consistently. They are how stable minds are built. They are how strong people are made. They are how ordinary lives become extraordinary over time. Another important part of reprogramming is learning to think in terms of growth instead of proof. Many people live as though every moment is a test of whether they are enough. That pressure is exhausting. It makes mistakes feel fatal. It makes learning feel embarrassing. It makes progress feel like a performance. But growth is not about proving your worth every day. Your worth is not on trial. Growth is about improvement. It is about becoming better at handling life. It is about learning to respond instead of collapse. It is about becoming more useful, more stable, more focused, more disciplined, and more intentional. When you think in terms of growth, failure becomes a lesson instead of a verdict. You can say, that did not work, so I need to adjust. You can say, I am still building, so I do not need to know everything yet. You can say, I am in progress, and that is enough for today. That mindset removes unnecessary pressure. It gives you room to keep learning without fear of being exposed as imperfect. Everybody is imperfect. Everybody is learning something. The strongest people are just more willing to learn in public and practice in private. They are not ashamed of the process. They are devoted to it. Reprogramming your mind requires that same devotion. It asks you to care more about development than image. It asks you to care more about discipline than appearance. It asks you to care more about honest progress than temporary approval. This shift matters because image can be fragile. Approval can be shallow. Development is lasting. A person who is developing is becoming harder to shake because their confidence is based on experience, not fantasy. They know what effort feels like. They know what recovery feels like. They know what it means to keep going after a hard week. That experience becomes strength. So stop trying to present a perfect version of yourself to the world. Focus on becoming a stronger version of yourself in reality. Reality lasts longer than performance. Growth lasts longer than applause. And a mind shaped by growth becomes capable of much more than a mind shaped by fear.
It becomes patient. It becomes sharp.
It becomes resilient. It becomes steady under pressure. And steady minds build steady lives. That is the aim here. Not perfection, but progress. Not performance, but power. Not temporary motivation, but lasting mental change. A reprogrammed mind also learns how to handle setbacks without self-sabotage. Self-sabotage often begins in the mind before it appears in behavior. A person has one setback, then tells themselves a devastating story. I knew this would happen. I am not built for success. I ruin everything I touch. Those sentences can do damage far beyond the original problem. They turn a moment into a pattern. They turn a mistake into a personality. They turn a rough week into a lifelong label. Reprogramming interrupts that chain. It says, something went wrong, but I am still here. I made a poor choice, but I can make a better one next. This path needs correction, not surrender. That is a more useful inner conversation. It does not minimize the pain, but it prevents the pain from becoming identity. And identity is where self-sabotage becomes most dangerous. If you see yourself as the kind of person who always fails, you will unconsciously move toward choices that confirm it. But if you begin to see yourself as a person who learns, adapts, and continues, your actions start changing to match that belief. This is why patience matters. You are not just breaking bad habits. You are building trust with yourself. That takes time. It takes repeated evidence. It takes days when you act responsibly even though the old voice is still present. Do not expect instant transformation. Expect honest repetition. Expect small victories. Expect resistance. Expect moments of doubt. But also expect change if you remain committed. Every time you choose a better response, you weaken the old pattern. Every time you continue after discouragement, you teach your mind that quitting is no longer the default. Every time you recover faster, you strengthen your future. This is the quiet power of mental reprogramming. It changes your reactions, then your habits, then your outcomes, then your identity. It is one of the most practical forms of personal transformation because it reaches the root. You are not just trying to look stronger. You are becoming stronger in the place where your choices begin. And once the mind changes, the rest of the life begins to follow. The body follows attention. The habits follow belief. The results follow behavior. That sequence is not magic. It is simply how human change works when it is approached with honesty and repetition. Your environment, your habits, and your self-talk all work together, which means reprogramming is not one small choice. It is a whole way of living. If you keep saying one thing and doing another, your mind becomes confused. If you keep dreaming but never scheduling, your mind learns that your goals are optional. If you keep promising yourself change but maintaining the same triggers, the same distractions, and the same routines, the old programming stays strong. So the work must be practical. Change what you can see. Change what you hear. Change what you repeat. Change what you allow. Create a space that reminds you of discipline. Set alarms that support your goals. Place useful reminders where you can see them. Start the day with something that points your mind toward growth instead of chaos. This may sound simple, but simple is not the same as easy. Simple is often the most powerful thing you can do because it is repeatable. And repeatable action changes identity more effectively than big emotional moments that disappear by afternoon. A reprogrammed mind also knows how to use silence. Silence is rare now. Too many people fill every gap with noise, and then wonder why they cannot hear themselves think. Silence helps you notice what is happening inside you. It gives your mind room to settle. It gives your emotions a place to breathe. It helps you separate your own values from the opinions of everyone around you. Sometimes 10 quiet minutes can reveal more than hours of frantic thinking. Use that time. Sit with your thoughts. Notice them. Write them down. Sort them out. Ask what is true, what is noise, and what needs action. That practice builds self-awareness, and self-awareness is a major part of a strong mind. A person who knows themselves can lead themselves. A person who can lead themselves is much harder to derail. They are not perfect, but they are purposeful. They know where they are going, even if the road is still being built. And when the road is still being built, patience becomes essential. Do not demand instant proof every day. Demand faithful effort. Demand honest movement. Demand your best within the season you are in. That is how a meaningful life grows. Slowly, then surely. Quietly, then clearly. Invisible first, visible later. The mind that can hold that kind of patience becomes incredibly powerful. It no longer panics when the process takes time. It no longer collapses because a result is delayed. It knows that a strong life is built in layers, and each layer matters. There will be moments when you feel like the old thoughts are winning. That does not mean you are failing. It means you are in the middle of training. Training is repetitive. Training is tiring. Training includes resistance. When you lift weights, the muscles do not grow because the weight is light. They grow because the weight challenges them. The same is true for your mind. Pressure, disappointment, boredom, and uncertainty can all become mental resistance if you learn to work with them instead of running away. You can say, "This is uncomfortable, and I can still respond well. This is unfamiliar, and I can still learn. This is heavy, and I can still take the next step." That is how the mind becomes resilient. Keep going, because your mind changes when your actions stay consistent.